Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Before the silent, ever-present connection of broadband and 5G, the internet announced its arrival with a symphony of screeching, hissing, and buzzing. For millions, this was the anthem of a new era, the digital dial tone that promised entry into a new online world. This was the sound of dial-up, the technology that, for all its limitations, painstakingly threaded the first digital connections into the fabric of everyday life. This is the story of its rise, its reign, and its inevitable demise. Long before the public understood the concept of an internet, the seeds of remote computer communication were being sown. In the mid-1980s, internet access was mostly for universities and research facilities. For the adventurous few outside these institutions, the digital frontier was accessible through dial-up connections to bulletin board systems, or BBCs. The first of these, the computerized bulletin board system, flickered to life in Chicago in 1978. These were siloed digital communities, each with its own phone number. You would command your modem to dial a specific BBS, where you could leave messages, share files, and engage in text-based discussions. It was a fragmented universe of digital islands. Pioneering services like CompuServe, starting in 1979, and The Source, were the first major commercial forays. CompuServe, in particular, became a favorite among the technically inclined, offering forums, file exchange, and some of the earliest online games. In 1985, it even hosted one of the first online comics, Witches and Stitches. The technology was primitive. Modem speeds were measured in baud, with 300 baud, roughly 300 bits per second, being common in the early 80s. This glacial pace meant interactions were almost entirely text-based. Yet, these early systems laid the crucial groundwork, establishing the fundamental principle of using the public telephone network to bridge the distance between isolated computers. For anyone who came of age in the 1990s, the sound is unforgettable, a sequence of beeps, screeches, and static that seemed to last an eternity. This was the handshake, the audible conversation between two modems establishing a connection. It wasn't just noise, it was the sound of digital negotiation. Dial-up internet was a clever workaround, repurposing a network designed for human voice to carry digital data. Here's how that process unfolded. First, the user initiated a connection. The computer would send an AT command to the modem, telling it to dial the phone number for their Internet Service Provider, or ISP. The modem, its name a combination of modulator-demodulator, would then convert the computer's digital ones and zeros into analog audio signals designed to travel over copper telephone lines. The user would hear the familiar dial tone, the clicking of the numbers, and the ringing on the other end. Once the ISP's modem bank answered, the two modems began their intricate dialogue. This handshake was a critical process where they determined the fastest, most reliable way to communicate. They exchanged information about their capabilities, tested the line quality, and agreed on protocols for things like error correction and data compression. This negotiation produced the iconic sound, a symphony of tones and white noise that was the raw data of their conversation being played through the modem speaker. That speaker wasn't just for show. It was a diagnostic tool, allowing users to hear if they got a busy signal or if the line quality was poor. Once the handshake was successful, the speaker would fall silent, and the connection was established. This reliance on the telephone network came with a significant limitation. The phone line was completely tied up. If someone picked up an extension phone, the internet connection was abruptly severed. Incoming calls would be met with a busy signal, a source of constant household tension that led many families to invest in a second phone line dedicated solely to the internet. While the technology was the engine, it was the rise of commercial internet service providers that put the keys in the hands of the masses. The first commercial dial-up ISP in the US was The World, launched in 1989, but no company defined the dial-up era more than America Online, or AOL. Rebranding as America Online in 1991, the company set its sights on making the internet accessible to the average person. AOL's strategy was one of relentless marketing. Starting in 1993, the company launched its infamous carpet bombing campaign, distributing millions of floppy disks and later CDs offering free trial hours. These disks were unavoidable, tucked into magazines, mailed to homes, and even packaged in cereal boxes. At one point, it was estimated that 50% of all CDs produced worldwide had an AOL logo on them. The campaign was a phenomenal success, catapulting AOL's subscriber base into the millions. AOL's success wasn't just about ubiquity, it was about user experience. Instead of dropping users into the raw internet, AOL provided a curated, walled garden environment. Its easy-to-use interface featured distinct channels for news, sports, and entertainment. It integrated email, famously announced with the cheerful "You've got mail" greeting, and pioneered instant messaging and chat rooms with AOL Instant Messenger, or AIM. For millions, AOL was the internet. By 1997, about half of all U.S. homes with internet access got it through AOL. Other players included CompuServe, which AOL eventually acquired, and Prodigy. The late 90s also saw the rise of free ad-supported ISPs like NetZero and Juno, which offered access in exchange for viewing a persistent advertising banner. The slow, methodical pace of dial-up shaped the very culture of the early internet. Life online was a deliberate act, a destination you traveled to. Before social media, there were AOL chat rooms, Usenet newsgroups, and web forums. These were the digital campfires where people with shared interests could connect. AOL's chat rooms were immensely popular, a world of users adopting screen names and getting to know each other with the shorthand A/S/L for age/sex/location. AOL Instant Messenger, launched in 1997, was a revolutionary tool that popularized real-time communication. The iconic sound of a received message became a staple of the era. AIM, along with rivals like ICQ and MSN Messenger, allowed for a new kind of social interaction, less formal than email and more immediate than a forum post. It was here that a generation learned the etiquette of digital conversation. The dial-up era was also the age of the personal homepage. Services like GeoCities, founded in 1994, democratized web publishing, allowing millions to create their own small corner of the internet. GeoCities organized sites into themed neighborhoods like Hollywood or Silicon Valley. The result was a sprawling, eclectic, and often chaotic digital city filled with animated GIFs, flashing text, MIDI background music, and under-construction banners. These pages were monuments to personal passion, a time when the web was a tapestry of individual expression. In a world before streaming, acquiring digital media was an exercise in extreme patience. A single 3-megabyte MP3 song could take over an hour to download on a 56K connection. This gave rise to the first wave of peer-to-peer file-sharing services. Napster, launched in 1999, became the epicenter of a music-sharing revolution. The long download times necessitated the use of download manager software, which could pause and resume downloads, a crucial feature when a single incoming phone call could reset hours of progress. Online gaming was a challenging but vibrant scene. While high latency made fast-paced action difficult, it didn't stop a generation of gamers from playing titles like Quake, Unreal Tournament, and StarCraft. Developers used clever tricks to compensate for the lag, but the experience was a far cry from today's seamless multiplayer. For all the nostalgia, the daily reality of dial-up was often one of immense frustration. The most universal issue was the tied-up phone line. Going online meant rendering the household's communication hub unusable for voice calls, leading to countless arguments. Then there was the speed. With a maximum theoretical speed of 56 kilobits per second, real-world speeds were often much lower. Web pages didn't just appear, they were painted onto the screen, one element at a time. Images would slowly resolve from a blurry mess into a clear picture. It could take several minutes for a single page to fully load. This sluggishness forced users to adopt specific browsing habits. Many would disable images in their browsers to speed up loading times. Downloading any file was a major commitment, a process that required careful planning around phone usage and the constant risk of disconnection. The dot-com boom also brought its own annoyances, as websites became increasingly complex with flash animations and pop-up ads that consumed precious bandwidth. Yet, these shared frustrations became part of the collective cultural experience, a common set of touchstones for a generation of early internet users. The demise of dial-up was a gradual eclipse brought on by the dawn of broadband. The late 90s and early 2000s saw the emergence of digital subscriber line, or DSL, and cable modems. DSL used the same copper phone lines, but split the frequency, allowing for an always-on connection that didn't interfere with phone use. Cable modems repurposed television's coaxial cable infrastructure, offering significantly more bandwidth and much higher speeds. The upgrade was dramatic. While dial-up peaked at 56 kilobits per second, early broadband offered speeds starting at 256 kilobits per second and quickly climbing into the megabits. This was a fundamental shift. Websites loaded almost instantly. Downloading music took minutes, not hours. Streaming video became a reality. The market responded swiftly. In the year 2000, there were nearly 150 million dial-up subscriptions in developed countries, compared to fewer than 20 million broadband. By 2004, the numbers were roughly equal. By 2010, over 90% of internet subscriptions were broadband. AOL, the king of dial-up, was particularly slow to embrace the shift. The company's disastrous 2000 merger with Time Warner was predicated on a future that was already becoming obsolete. When the dot-com bubble burst, the new company's value plummeted. Its dial-up subscription model became an anchor as users flocked to faster alternatives. The iconic sound of the modem handshake began to fade into a nostalgic echo. Though its reign was brief, dial-up's impact is immeasurable. It was the crucial bridge that carried society from the analog age into the digital one. Its greatest achievement was making the internet accessible to the masses by leveraging the ubiquitous telephone network. However, this also highlighted a new form of inequality: the digital divide. Access was limited to areas with reliable phone service, and costs could be prohibitive. As broadband rolled out, this divide was exacerbated, a problem that persists today in some areas. The constraints of dial-up also shaped the modern web, forcing early designers to be efficient and focus on lightweight design, principles that remain relevant. Perhaps dial-up's most enduring legacy is the powerful nostalgia it evokes. The screech of the modem, the "You've got mail" alert, and the agony of a disconnected download are shared memories for a generation. This nostalgia is not just for the technology, but for a simpler, more deliberate internet, a time when being online was a novel experience, a conscious act of exploration into a new frontier. It was a time of patience, of community forged through text, and of the thrilling sense that you were part of building a new world, one screeching, static-filled connection at a time. The demise of dial-up wasn't just the end of a technology, it was the end of the internet's childhood.